Incredible encounter, paralyzed woman discovered in the rain by Mafia boss, his amazing promise. Sarah sat alone in her dimly lit apartment, a storm raging outside, mirroring the tempest within her. The darkness felt suffocating, wrapping around her like her own insecurities, smothering her sense of purpose. For years, she had been the consummate caregiver, her clinic, her patients, her family. Now, the loss of her mobility had ripped that identity from her, leaving her adrift in an ocean of despair. The therapist who had once restored movement to so many was now trapped within her own body, a vessel of unfulfilled potential. As she gazed at the frayed edges of an old photo of her father, the memories crashed over her, threatening to drown her. The photograph had once served as a reminder of resilience, but now it represented everything she had lost. Compressing the fabric of her emotions, she couldn't help but question her worth. Wasn't she supposed to care for others? Instead, she was a burden to her family, who were accustomed to her strength. The thought twisted in her stomach like a knife. What if she could never be that person again? The weight of her thoughts burdened her as she decided to brave the rain, driven by a desperate need to reclaim her cherished heirloom. Her heart raced against the palpable fear gnawing at her, a fear of failing to retrieve the only piece of comfort left, and a fear of confronting the world, which felt so overwhelmingly hostile now. Rolling up her wheelchair, she steeled herself for the challenges ahead. Navigating through the pounding rain and slippery streets, despair gnawed at her. Flashes of self-doubt flickered like lightning across her mind. What if the storm took everything from her again? What if she got stuck in the dark, unable to find her way back? Each thought left her breathless, creating a tempest as powerful as the storm around her. As she wheeled along the empty street, the wind howled, attempting to snatch away her resolve. The memories of her past life echoed painfully, shadowing every movement. Suddenly, an overwhelming sense of vulnerability surged. What lay ahead? She only sought an heirloom, yet all that surrounded her felt insurmountable. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she began to lose hope, a figure emerged through the veil of rain. Marco, a rugged man with a weary gaze, stood there, umbrella in hand. He approached, curiosity flickering behind his dark eyes. It struck her that this man, weathered by life's battles, might see the remnants of struggle in her, too. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice deep and steady, yet somehow gentle, as if he understood the storms that raged within both of them. "No, I can manage," Sarah said, her voice shaky. But the tremor in her voice belied her defiance. The gravity of her circumstances pressed down heavily, and allowing assistance felt like relinquishing the last shred of control she had over her life. "You're not alone in this storm," he said, offering the umbrella. The rain poured even harder, and she found herself hesitating, battling the conflicting urges to accept help and to maintain her pride. In that moment, as droplets splattered on the hard pavement, Sarah felt the weight of her determination falter. The path ahead loomed dark and uncertain, and she realized how desperately she wanted to reclaim not just her heirloom, but her life. Would she allow Marco, a man with a dubious past, into her life? Could facing the shadows of both their histories somehow lead to liberation? As hope mixed with fear. Like the storm's downpour, Sarah's heart tightened. Marco's presence presented a flicker of possibility she dared not grasp fully. But just as doubt swirled in, she caught a glimpse in his eyes, a mirrored longing for redemption. Would she grasp it, or let another chance slip away? She found herself at the edge of a choice that could alter everything. As the rain cascaded around them, Sarah's heart pounded, teetering on the brink of choice. The heaviness that clung to her like a wet blanket seemed too immense to push aside, yet Marco's outstretched umbrella flickered like a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. His rough exterior, the wear of life's hardships etched into his features, offered an odd comfort. Here was a man who embodied resilience, and for the first time in weeks, Sarah recognized a sliver of herself in him. "What's your name?" Marco asked, tilting the umbrella slightly to shield both of them from the relentless downpour. "Sarah," she replied quietly, paralyzed by the impasse between pride and vulnerability. "Sarah," he echoed, testing the name like it was a fragile artifact. "Let me help you. You shouldn't have to fight this storm alone." The sincerity in his voice resonated, echoing the very principles she'd spent her life promoting to others. Why was she resisting the kind of support she had consistently dispensed to countless patients? In that moment, the choice expanded beyond retrieving an heirloom. It was about embracing her humanity, allowing herself to be seen, and confronting her deepest fears. With a hesitant nod, she relinquished her defiance. Marco moved closer, and Sarah felt an inexplicable connection forming a bridge built on the mutual understanding of struggle. Together they forged a path through the rain-soaked streets, her heart racing not just from anxiety but from a burgeoning sense of possibility. "Tell me about this heirloom," Marco prompted, his curiosity genuine as he kept pace alongside her wheelchair. A lump formed in Sarah's throat, and she hesitated. Sharing personal stories felt daunting, especially to someone whose past likely mirrored the trials she sought to escape. "It belonged to my father. It's all I have left of him," she finally admitted, her voice cracking. "He passed away last year. I was supposed to be there for him, to care for him." She caught a flicker of empathy in Marco's gaze, encouraging her to continue. "I let him down, just like I feel I'm letting everyone down now." Each word spilled swiftly, liberating but laden with regret. "Now I'm not even able to care for myself." "You're not letting anyone down, Sarah. Life is unpredictable," Marco replied, his tone surprisingly soothing, as if he'd mastered the art of emotional outreach, despite his rugged appearance. In leaning into her pain, she noticed something shifting within her, a subtle awakening. The pursuit of a single heirloom had unearthed deeper longings for connection, for understanding, even for forgiveness. Could it be that in helping others, she might find the fragments of herself she thought irrevocably lost? "Why are you helping me?" she questioned, feeling the stirrings of trust against a backdrop of wariness. In a world where vulnerability often equated to exposure, the notion of relying on a stranger sent tremors of doubt through her system. "In a way, I see my own struggles in you," he said. "I've faced my share of storms. Maybe this is my chance at redemption." The confession hung between them, a thread pulling their narratives closer. Her next words felt heavy with significance, the potential to open a new chapter in her life. What if helping each other could lead to something greater? For the first time in ages, Sarah envisioned a path forward, one where her circumstances did not dictate her value. The conversation flowed, drawing out their fears, dreams, and hopes. With each moment shared, the grips of her insecurities loosened slightly, creating pockets of clarity. Across the street, the shop where her father's heirloom was stored came into view, its windows misty but warm. This was the place she thought would hold her redemption. Yet, as her fingers tightened around the armrest of her wheelchair, the noise inside, the chatter of customers, the laughter seemed to echo with challenges greater than reclaiming an object. As they approached, she turned to Marco with a resolute gaze. "I can do this, can't I?" He met her gaze, eyes bright with determination. "Yes. You absolutely can. But remember, you don't have to do it alone." Tension coiled within her, a mixture of determination and trepidation. The moment loomed as Sarah faced not just the store, but the weight of her past and the potential for her future. Little did she realize that the next steps wouldn't just be about reclaiming a lost token, they would be an awakening to her own strength and a sign that perhaps, together with Marco, they might navigate the rubble of each other's lives towards something transformative. Just as she steeled herself for what lay ahead, a chill ran down her spine. Within the comforting warmth of the shop, shadows stirred. Would confronting her past lead to healing, or would the reopening of old wounds thrust her into deeper turmoil? As the pair drew closer to the shop, Sarah's breath quickened. It wasn't just the looming presence of the store, it was the psychological weight of the decisions she faced. The laughter and chatter pulsating from within felt like an undercurrent tugging at her until the air seemed heavier with expectation. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered, doubt piercing her newfound resolve. You've already taken a significant step, Marco encouraged, keeping his voice steady amidst the chaos. What matters now is how you choose to move forward. She glanced at him, seeing not just reassurance but a reflection of her own struggles. His stormy past felt distant yet familiar, as if it had been lost in the same fog of regret that now clouded her mind. What was it about this man that coaxed her fears into light? She considered this for a moment, allowing herself to explore a question she often deemed off-limits. What would it mean to trust someone again? Her fingers flexed against the armrest of her chair as she braced herself, but even in the disarray of emotion, something powerful began stirring. Maybe this moment could be about reclaiming more than just an heirloom. This could be the threshold of her resurgence. Taking a deep breath, she steered her wheelchair toward the entrance. The bell tinkled overhead, a gentle chime that felt oddly welcoming despite its simplicity. Inside, the scene unfolded like a tableau, shelves bursting with antiques, the scent of polished wood escaping into the air, laughter peppering the atmosphere. Sarah hesitated, the warmth of the shop contrasting sharply with her internal chill. "Do you need a moment?" Marco asked, his gaze softening with concern. "No," she countered, shaking her head lightly. "I want to turn back now." The defiance in her voice felt foreign yet empowering. As they moved deeper into the shop, she searched for the display where her father's heirloom had been kept. It was a glimmer of light in the emotional muddiness of her memories. Yet, as they passed other patrons, her anxiety surged. Their conversations playful, carefree felt like a world removed from her own heavy heart. Each chuckle felt like a reminder of what she lacked, of the life she had once led unburdened by loss. Marco stood by her side, a silent guardian amid the chaos. She could feel the weight of his presence, steady and calming, even as her internal dialogue spiraled. "You really can do this," he whispered again, and this time, she clutched the armrests tighter, emboldened by the truth of his words. But as they neared the counter, an unexpected figure caught her eye, an older man with a weathered face that sparked an early memory. He was speaking to another customer, his voice a low gravel mixed with warmth. Was that the shopkeeper her father trusted all those years ago? Her heart began to race, the past was surfacing with fierce clarity. When the shopkeeper turned, his gaze met hers for a fleeting moment, and in that instant, Sarah's resolve shook. The threads of her history weaved together in a daunting tapestry, and the urgency of the situation gripped her fiercely. Could she approach him? Could she expose the rawness of her loss to someone who knew her father? "Let me handle this," Marco suggested gently, noting her hesitation. "If it helps, I'll be right here." He moved confidently to speak with the shopkeeper, his posture relaxed but protective. Sarah watched, momentarily enraptured by the ease with which he navigated this unfamiliar territory. It ignited something deep within her, a burgeoning potential, a flicker of self-worth. In that moment, an unexpected thought crossed her mind. What if seeking the heirloom wasn't just about retrieving an object? What if it marked the beginning of broader acceptance, not just of her father's absence but of her own worthiness to exist beyond grief? However, just as clarity began to break through the fog, a memory washed over her, a moment from her father's death, his faltering breaths, the sinking realization of who she had lost. The sharp pang of anguish threatened to drown her newfound determination. With her gaze fixed on Marco's engaging conversation, she battled another wave of apprehension. Was she ready to confront such deep emotional scars? Was she brave enough to uphold their shared promise of growth and acceptance? Even as she wrestled with herself, curiosity gnawed at her. Could this be a threshold into a world where she reclaimed more than just a family relic? What would it reveal about her capacity to forge her path towards healing? As she turned back to the shopkeeper, decisions loomed. The path she chose would not just reshape her relationship with her past but could echo far into her future, a future she now yearned to inhabit, fear scale, and perhaps even thrive within. Just as Marco gestured toward her, signaling that he was ready, something shifted in Sarah's chest. The walls she built began to show cracks, and amidst the emotional tumult, a question beckoned. Would she allow this encounter to mend or further fracture her spirit? The moment for decision stretched like an infinite road ahead, ready to reveal the untold complexities of her journey. Sarah's heart raced as Marco beckoned her closer to the shopkeeper. Each tick of the clock echoed the weight of her past, wrapping around her like a tightening noose. But within that anxious moment, a thread of determination intertwined with her fear, pulling her toward action. Everything felt at stake, not just a family heirloom, but the possibility of stepping beyond loss and reclaiming her narrative. The shopkeeper, with his silver-streaked hair and gentle eyes, looked up from his conversation, and Sarah's throat tightened. It was as if he embodied every unresolved detail about her father, every moment they had shared in the warmth of his absent presence. This was a man who could bridge the chasm of memory and reality. "Are you ready?" Marco's steady voice cut through her inner turmoil, but the question was loaded, and it echoed within her. Could she face this looming specter from her past? Taking a breath, she pushed the weight of uncertainty aside and focused on the shopkeeper. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. The shopkeeper turned his attention fully to her, a welcoming smile brushing his features, yet his gaze carried an awareness that paralyzed her momentarily. "Can I help you, miss?" he asked, his voice rich like the timbre of her father's laughter. It was a voice that sought to comfort, yet it stirred anguish within her. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, searching frantically for the words that could encapsulate her desire to reconnect, to reclaim what was lost. Yet, all that spilled forth were fragmented memories. I'm looking for something that belonged to my father," she managed, every syllable weighted with longing. With a nod, the shopkeeper seemed to peer straight past her words into an abyss of shared understanding. "Your father had good taste. I remember him well," he said, his tone shifting to one steeped in nostalgia. Suddenly, the remnants of her father's presence seeped into the shop around her, mingling with the sense of antiquity and memory. It was more than just a conversation, this was a blossoming connection to her past, a chance to reclaim a part of herself that felt lost. But the deeper she delved into this world of recollection, the more she felt the fear creeping back, fear that the connection could be severed before it truly began. "What do you remember?" she asked, surprising herself with the urgency in her voice. He had a keen eye for unique pieces and stories," the man replied, leaning in with genuine interest. "He was a seeker of the extraordinary, just like you." In that moment, Sarah's heart swelled with a notion that took her by surprise. Perhaps the shopkeeper could help her rediscover not just an object, but also a piece of her lost identity. Marco's hand on her shoulder brought her back to the present. "You're doing great," he encouraged softly, his presence a reminder of the strength she was slowly uncovering. Yet, beneath this nascent confidence simmered a profound realization. The shopkeeper's words outlined a daunting truth: reclaiming her father's heirloom might also mean reconciling the intricate, painful emotions it stirred within her. Did she have the fortitude to embrace not only the cherished memories but also the hurt they carried? She allowed herself a moment to consider the shopkeeper's thin line between the treasures of the past and the lessons of grief that lay intertwined with them. He could be the key not just to her father's belongings, but the hidden pieces of herself she had shoved deep into the corners of her soul. "I need to know where you have it," Sarah said, the firmness in her voice surprising even her. "Of course," he replied with a smile, seemingly proud of her newfound resolve. But before he could elaborate, an unexpected noise, a shifting at the entrance, drew both of their eyes. In that fleeting moment, the air abruptly thickened with tension, and a figure strolled in, exuding an air of unyielding authority. Sarah's eyes widened as the stranger scanned the room. Who was this intruder? And what traumatic shadows did he bring with him that could potentially fracture this burgeoning moment of connection? All she knew was that the serenity of her quest had shifted, and the stakes just soared higher. Would this unexpected confrontation derail her progress, or could it reveal another layer to her personal journey? As the stranger moved closer, anxiety gripped her anew. Would she crumble under the weight of uncertainty, or would she stand firm on her journey to self-reclamation? That answer loomed on the horizon, threaded with urgency. The air thickened with uncertainty as Sarah's eyes darted toward the stranger. Clad in a tailored black suit, his presence felt more like a storm gathering in her consciousness, a force that could uproot her fragile steps toward resolution. The shopkeeper's expression shifted slightly, a flash of recognition crossing his features. "Didn't he expect to see you here, Mr. DeLuca?" he said, maintaining an oddly composed tone, as if fearing the tension would snap. Sarah's heart sank. The name echoed in her mind, pulling at threads of caution. The DeLucas were known in her town, distant figures of power that stirred whispers of intimidation and intrigue. "Just came to check on a few things," the man replied smoothly, dismissing the softness of the shopkeeper's words, his gaze shifting to her like a hawk sizing up its prey. "And who is this?" The question was a blade, dark and cutting through the momentary nostalgia that had cloaked the shop. Feeling exposed, Sarah swallowed hard, her own voice a fraction lower, drained of its earlier confidence. "I'm Sarah. I'm looking for something belonging to my father." It was a quiet defiance, but as the words tumbled from her mouth, she questioned their strength. Would her honesty disarm him or amplify her vulnerability? DeLuca stepped closer, examining her with an unsettling intensity. "Your father, you say?" "Seems I've heard stories about him," he remarked, his tone laced with an ambiguous familiarity. The weight of his scrutiny made her pulse quicken. There was something about the way he lingered on her words, reminiscent of a predator assessing the resistance of its quarry. "Is that so?" she responded, trying to sound unconcerned, but betraying the tremor that danced in her voice. Was he aware of her past, or was this merely another agenda? He was a man of influence, he mused, his smile a calculated gesture, devoid of warmth. It's a shame when such potential goes unrecognized. Her resolve faltered. DeLuca's presence was not just an interruption, it was a disruptive force she hadn't anticipated, wrenching at the last vestiges of safety she had wrapped around herself. "Can I assist you with something?" The shopkeeper's voice was a tether, though uncertain. "I just wanted to see how my dear friend's daughter was faring," DeLuca smirked, his gaze never wavering from her face. "I trust you're not getting in over your head, little dove." Every instinct in Sarah screamed to retreat, to silence the tumult within her, yet beneath the surface, a current of anger surged. If she was to reclaim her narrative, she couldn't allow herself to shrink in the face of intimidation. "I'm here to learn about my father, not to discuss him with a stranger." "Stranger?" he echoed, an edge in his voice. "How delightful. Call me a well-wisher, then." In that instant, Sarah was faced with a crucial choice, to continue asserting her presence, to defy the uncomfortable sensation swelling within, or to retreat, succumbing to the weight of fear and uncertainty. Platforms of her past painful truths and cherished memories clicked into place. She was not just a victim standing in a dimly lit shop, she was a seeker, a challenger, and the time had come for her to reclaim her agency. "I'm not afraid of your reputation," she said. The words felt like a lifeboat against the tide of growing anxiety. DeLuca's expression shifted, intrigue sparking in his eyes, dissecting her defiance like a puzzle he was eager to solve. "Interesting," he replied, his tone signaling a game had begun. In that fleeting, charged moment, Sarah sensed the uncharted waters she was stepping into. She wasn't just chasing after an heirloom, she was redefining who she could be amidst the shadows that sought to define her. The dialogue hung palpably in the air, charged with a palpable intensity. Would this confrontation empower her quest or entangle her in a web of danger? The past was whispering to her, but its responses hinged on the choices she would make next. As Sarah focused her thoughts, she realized some truths were more potent than fear itself. In this duality of courage and intimidation, clarity flickered on the horizon. The shopkeeper observed with nonchalant curiosity, while DeLuca's encounter revealed much more than she had anticipated. Each moment pressed her to confront the trajectory of her own life, and she could either navigate a path toward self-discovery or collapse beneath the weight of her past. Determined to carve her own way, she felt the rustle of new resolve ignite within her. Yet, before she could assert her next move, DeLuca stepped forward, closing the distance. "Let us not make hasty decisions, shall we? The game is just beginning." With his last words hanging in the air, Sarah felt the daunting realization settle upon her. The stakes were higher than she comprehended. The journey had transformed. It was no longer simply about unearthing her father's heirloom, but rather about standing through the trials that promised to emerge. The question clawed at her mind: was she ready to face the entirety of what this new path infused with uncertainty might demand of her? The atmosphere buzzed with an electric energy as Sarah stood her ground, battling the instinct to run that churned in her gut. Her heart raced, but it was not just fear that fueled it, it was indignation. She was claiming her space in a world that had too often left her feeling unseen. DeLuca's approach was like a prelude to a storm, the air around her thick and charged. "Game," she repeated, trying to match the confident tone she had conjured moments before. "What do you mean by that?" DeLuca's eyes gleamed with a mixture of amusement and intent. "Your father, he held secrets that many would kill to keep buried. You might be in over your head, but I see potential in your curiosity. Why not harness it?" The insinuation had a sharp edge, plucking at her every insecurity. She felt exposed, as if he could peel back her layers with every calculated word. But what intrigued her most was the flicker of an offer, a thread of possibility wrapped in the coercion of his tone. "What is it you're really offering?" she fired back, steadier now. The depth of her father's shadows threatened to swallow her whole, yet she was realizing that acknowledgement could shift the balance. Her voice turned firm. She was no longer simply responding to his threats, but engaging in dialogue. DeLuca smiled, but it felt predatory. "Information, Sarah. Access to those who knew him. Guidance through this labyrinth of lies and intricate webs of deception. Let me help you navigate this. Together, we can dig deeper than you ever thought possible." The weight of his proposal felt heavy, yet tantalizing. She hesitated, caught between the allure of the truth she desperately sought and the danger that lurked in a partnership with someone like him. "What's your angle?" It was a gamble asking this, but each question felt like a step toward confidence, revealing a growing curiosity within her own strength. "You think me wicked? Perhaps I am. But you, my dear, are a beacon of light, asking questions others forget to even ponder." In this game, he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper: "Knowledge is power. Your father toyed with the wrong people, and I could show you the way to reclaim what's rightfully yours." Was this manipulation or enlightenment? Sarah recognized the shadows flitting across his gaze as he spoke. Power and danger were two sides of the same coin. Her determination flared, she felt on the cusp of a choice. Trusting someone like DeLuca could lead her into a dark spiral, yet refusing could mean remaining powerless. "I need to think." The words came slowly, but they bore the weight of her growing resolve. DeLuca straightened, satisfaction radiating from him. "Take your time. Just remember, the clock is ticking. Your father's legacy, it's not just about finding a trinket. It's about understanding who you are. Embrace the plunge." As he pivoted, melding back into the shadows of the store, Sarah was struck with the realization: this encounter had ignited something deep within her. There was no retreating now, her father's past was entwined with her fate, and she needed to confront it fully. Every breath she took filled her with determination, the fear that had once paralyzed her now morphing into a raw fuel. She couldn't draw that out any longer, for the stakes had shifted from a mere heirloom to unraveling a legacy fraught with danger and discovery. But as she stepped back out into the world beyond the shop, a niggling doubt pricked at her mind. Could she truly navigate this turbulent journey alone, or would she need to ally herself with shadows that danced at the edges of morality? The paths ahead unfurled like an intricate map of choices. Each turn promised revelations about her father and herself, but also danger lurking in the veil of darkness. She was not yet sure how the threads would weave together, but her commitment to discover the truth was cemented. With each footstep echoing in her heart, Sarah knew that the journey was only just beginning. She would either define her story or be consumed by the ones already written around her. And as uncertainty clouded her mind, pulling her further into doubt, a new realization gripped her. What if the truth she sought was only the beginning of a darkness she was yet to comprehend? The street was painted in shades of gray as rain began to drizzle, mingling with the shadows of the city. Sarah felt the cool droplets splash against her skin, grounding her in the present moment while her mind raced through the whispers of DeLuca's words. Each step away from the store was heavy with the weight of potential choices, an unending loop of questions spiraling around her. She turned a corner and paused, scanning her surroundings. The stark street lamps illuminated the jagged edges of the alleyways, beckoning with a sense of foreboding. Was she truly ready to dive into this dark underworld? Her father's silence had kept her memories at bay, but now, with curiosity as a companion, the darkness was palpable. There was no more avoiding the truth, it was time to confront it. With a determined stride, Sarah made her way to the coffee shop that had often been a refuge during her college days, the comforting aroma of roasted beans and sugar-sweet pastries a balm against the cold. As she entered, the familiar hum of chatter enveloped her. It was a welcoming space, yet a tether to the life she'd lived before this commitment to truth. Sitting at a corner table, she pulled out her notebook, a habit she had once used to map out her life, now transformed into a strategy for the unknown. The blank pages stared back at her, filled with the potential of exploration. Each prompt she crafted questions about her father, insights into the people who could have crossed his path became her lifeline, drawing her deeper into a mosaic of memories she had refused to face. As she wrote, her thoughts began to crystallize into a plan. Reaching out to those who knew her father felt essential, she had to connect the fragmented stories he left behind. But who could she trust? The fear of betrayal loomed, yet the thought of stepping back was no longer an option. Then came the ghost of hesitation, looming larger. Dan, her college mentor, had once hinted at dubious relationships her father had tangled in. They had shared drinks under starlit skies, laughter that now felt like a thin veil over untold truths. Would he still be willing to help her now that she was treading dangerously close to a legacy steeped in darkness? "Excuse me," a barista interrupted her thoughts, snapping her back to the present. "Can I get you anything else?" "Just this for now," Sarah responded, forcing a smile as she closed her notebook. With her heart still racing, she resolved to call Dan. The act felt like stepping onto a tightrope, testing her balance between fear and courage. She glanced back down at her notes, the ink revealing the foundation of her courage, the hidden words of a woman ready to unleash her potential. Her fingers shook slightly as she dialed. "Hey, it's Sarah." The moment he answered, a rush of warmth flooded her. "I need to talk. It's about my father." As their conversation unfolded, a new ripple of understanding washed over her. She had breached the wall of her own silence by reaching out, ready to claim not just her father's past, but her own identity. The more they discussed, the more she felt secrets budging beneath the surface, waiting to bloom with truth. With every revelation, Sarah felt herself transforming, no longer the girl bound by shadows but a woman awakening to her inherited strength. There was a pivotal moment, a shift in her perception. She realized she was not inherently defined by her father's legacy but rather by her response to it. But just as clarity pierced her fog of doubt, a text from an unknown number appeared on her phone, chilling her resolve. "I hope you realize what you're getting into." The ominous words hung in the air like a fog, dense and suffocating. Panic surged through her veins, crashing against the tremors of newfound empowerment. Was she truly prepared for the consequences of her investigation? As she stared at her phone, doubt re-emerged, gnawing at the very foundation of her awakening. The question now loomed larger than ever: would she fight through this darkness, or was her search for the truth weaving a web from which she struggled to escape? The coffee shop buzzed around her, each laugh and clink of ceramic pulling her further from the storm raging in her mind. Sarah could barely focus on the warmth that enveloped her with every sip of the latte, as the text loomed an insistent reminder of her frailty in this new venture. Staring out the window at the rain-soaked streets, she contemplated her next move. Dan's voice echoed in her memory, the reassurance tinged with a caution that felt like an anchor weighing her down. With each revelation he shared about her father's past, visions of a straightforward life began to fracture, giving way to a murky narrative full of shadowy alliances. Those associations frightened her but also sparked a flicker of determination within. The unknown could also mean liberation, the chance to redefine her place in a story that had often felt out of her control. A fresh resolve began to form. She would not be a passive observer of her father's legacy but an active participant in crafting her narrative. The chilling message had rattled her, but she recognized the signal to rise, to embrace this newfound courage or risk suffocating under the weight of her own doubts. It was time for action. Reaching for her notebook once more, Sarah jotted down a new plan, a list of potential contacts. Friends of her father, former colleagues, anyone who might contain the keys to unlock the truth. Among them, Dan stood first as a necessary ally, but she considered who else might serve this mission. She needed more than just his reassuring words, she craved tangible connections. Will the tangled web of her father's life reveal fellow agents of intrigue, or would it ensnare her in darkness? The thought energized her, and as she finished her latte, she felt increasingly prepared to confront the looming shadows. Grabbing her coat, she stepped back into the rain, understanding that her next destination needed clarity. The night felt alive, charged with electricity and anticipation, invoking the adrenaline she hadn't felt in years. Moving without restraint through the crowded sidewalks, she decided to seek out a small gathering place she'd heard of through Dan, a community of artists and thinkers who thrived in the heart of the city. If her father had mingled with these people, perhaps they held pieces of the puzzle she needed. As she arrived at the venue, a dimly lit bar pulsated with the rhythm of live music. The laughter and chatter felt intoxicating, a vortex pulling her into the warmth of the crowd. Navigating through the personalities, she felt the tension in her chest ebbing. This was her world, raw, real, and alive. But was she ready for the conversations that might intersect with her father's past? The implications filled her mind as she approached a group animatedly discussing a recent art exhibit. Taking a breath, she steeled herself and interjected with a question about the artist, using it as an entry point. The discussions bumped against one another like soft waves until a familiar name arose, her father's. The room grew quiet for a moment, eyes turned towards her as the surprise of recognition hung in the air. "Would you know him?" one of the artists asked, penetrating her threshold of comfort. In that split second, Sarah faced a crucial choice, to reveal her connection and risk exposing herself further into her father's tangled web, or to retreat into anonymity, letting the moment slip away like so many before. Her heart raced with the weight of impending decisions. She could feel at the cusp of transformation, ready to either forge connections or retreat to a safer version of herself. "Actually," she began, her resolve hardening. "I'm trying to learn more about him." As the words escaped her, she became aware of a new revelation at play, her willingness to step forward, no longer afraid of the shadows. But just as encouragement swelled within her, the ominous text returned to haunt her thoughts. What awaited her as she stepped deeper into the unknown? Would she uncover truths worth embracing, or danger that might shatter her newfound strength? The sound of laughter faded into the background, a prelude to what could either be empowering or devastating. Every heartbeat echoed a question she wasn't entirely sure she was ready to answer. The room felt heavy with expectation, and Sarah's mind raced as she braced for the weight of the questions that could follow. By declaring her search for the truth, she had thrust herself into a dance of curiosity and peril, which had begun with a single, simple admission. The artist's eyes pierced through her facade, and Sarah felt exposed, vulnerable. This was no casual conversation. "How well did you know him?" An older man with gray streaks in his hair asked, his voice warm but probing. The question hung in the air like mist, and Sarah struggled to summon a reply. Did she share the anecdotes of her childhood, the snippets of a life once lived? Opening that door might lead her deeper into her father's mysterious past than she anticipated. Yet the need for clarity tugged at her. I didn't know him as well as I'd hoped, she finally stammered, the confession slipping out almost involuntarily. He left a lot of unanswered questions. As she spoke, the group exchanged glances, assessing the weight of her words. She felt the shift in energy, a palpable curiosity igniting the atmosphere, as if her declaration had conjured the specter of her father into their midst. And now you're seeking answers. Another artist chimed in, encouraging her to continue with an intensity that was both frightening and exhilarating. Some would say digging into an artist's past can unearth more than just artworks. Or danger, Sarah interjected, her voice steadier now. It was thrilling to challenge the very notion that had anchored her. Danger felt less imposing when met with courage. The band played on, a backdrop to her uncharted vulnerability, and Sarah could sense that they were on a precipice of something monumental. She knew she needed to navigate the darkness, not just for herself, but for insight into the man who had shaped her life unfathomably despite his absence. "Can you tell me more about him?" she asked, her voice firm. This was the moment she had waited for a chance to engage, to dismantle the walls that had kept her from her father's world. A younger woman, her arms adorned with paint-stained sleeves, leaned forward, animated. "He was enigmatic, you know. A man with stories wrapped in mystery. You'd hear his name in hushed tones, his connections ran deep. His art wasn't just about beauty, it bore the weight of choices, decisions that could shake cities." Intrigued, Sarah's heart raced. This was the glimpse she sought, the raw edge of his existence that had always eluded her. What kind of connections? She pressed, each question pulling her closer to the chasms of her father's reality. The conversation spiraled, swirling into tales of clandestine deals and ambitious rivalries, a world rich with intrigue and fraught with peril. Sarah found herself at the center of this vibrant tapestry, the personal embodiment of her father's unspooled legacy. The more they spoke, the more she recognized a thread of family within it all, tying her own life experiences to those she had just begun to uncover. But, as laughter punctuated the space around her, an unsettling thought crept in. What awaited her if she pursued these leads? Would the truth be as liberating as she hoped, or would it challenge her more than she could endure? Was there a hidden danger lurking behind the tales? As the artists exchanged stories, Sarah knew she needed to confront the very fears that had shackled her spirit. The looming specter of her father's past became not just a narrative she sought to understand, but a critical step in defining herself. "Can I meet more of his old friends?" she asked, a newfound urgency fueling her determination. The group fell silent again, exchanging looks. There it was, the pivotal question, the lifeline stretched out toward unknown currents. They hesitated, uncertain, and the silence expanded, each passing second amplifying her anticipation. Then the woman with the paint-splattered arms leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It might come at a cost, you know. Do you understand what that means?" Sarah's stomach tightened. It was clear she was standing at a crucial juncture. Recognizing her fear and embracing it, she met the eyes of the group steadfastly. "Whatever the cost, I'm ready to face it," she declared, resolute. As the tension in the room shifted, she felt the enormity of her choice expressing itself through the air between them. The stakes had risen, and in this perilous commitment to the truth of her father's life, Sarah felt a newfound strength begin to unfurl within her, a realization that she could wield this power. What lay ahead was still obscured by uncertainty and shadow, but with each heartbeat, she solidified her path. With the tremors of vulnerability still echoing in her chest, Sarah took one definitive step forward. "Then let us make it happen," she said, ready to pursue whatever revelations awaited in the embrace of her father's world. What cost would ultimately challenge her fortitude further? Could this new pathway lead her not just to truths about her father, but to the essence of who she was destined to become? The storm now seemed distant as Sarah navigated through the vibrant streets, conviction coursing through her veins. The previous night's revelations had solidified a profound shift within her. No longer tethered to the responses of others, she found herself anchored in a new narrative, one where her autonomy took center stage, guiding her on a path of self-discovery. Her initial trepidation faded in the face of purpose. Seeking out her father's connections had illuminated an uncharacteristic tenacity within her that resonated louder than her insecurities. Each person she reached out to carried the promise of uncovering another fragment of her father's hidden narrative. Their stories promised to reveal the complexities of his past, shaping her understanding of who she was meant to be. Hours turned into what felt like weeks of exploration in her quest for authenticity. Conversations flowed freely with colleagues of her father, each piece of information adding depth to the canvas she was painting about his legacy. These encounters revealed influences she had never known about, friends who had shared concerns, volleying tales marked by both admiration and regret. The stories resonated with her, echoing her journey of embracing vulnerability in the shadow of past losses. When she met Elaine, an artist whose works were imbued with emotional scars, Sarah felt the surreal weight of destiny materialize. Over lattes and sketches, Elaine recounted the tragic circumstances surrounding her father's choices, the persistent brush with danger, the push-pull of ambition that danced dangerously close to those intimate connections. With each story, Sarah began to reclaim strength, her identity interwoven into the very fabric of family history that had once felt inexplicable. "You are your father's daughter," Elaine pointedly remarked one afternoon, her eyes penetrating, "but you have a choice. Embrace the light, or let the darkness bind you." The gravity of that statement resonated in her core, prompting a stark realization: it was indeed within her capacity to redefine this lineage. She could be a custodian of legacy instead of merely an observer. After weeks of painstaking introspection, Sarah stood at a crucial crescendo of transformation. Each discovery carved away at the insecurity she had nurtured for years, revealing a woman who could not only confront her father's shadow but carve her path forward. The fears that had once immobilized her ebbed as she unearthed long-buried truths and regained her agency. The climax of her journey arrived with a simple yet powerful realization: there were no more chains binding her to her past. Instead, she had forged keys to navigate her future. Walking freely into the art space for her first solo exhibit was both exhilarating and terrifying. The walls bore witness to the culmination of her journey, a collection of artworks inspired by her father's life, framed between shadows and light. Each piece told a story woven with the influences of her exploratory odyssey. She stood there, a confident figure, grounding her resolve through the pieces that sang of both joy and grief, courage and vulnerability. As the crowd filled the gallery, an enchanting dialogue began to unfurl, people shared reflections, applauding the depth of emotions captured within each frame. Eye contact became the real currency of connection. Strangers were resonating with her tale, building a bridge between shared experiences and understanding. From apprehension emerged an unwavering stream of pride. This was not just a showcase of art but a representation of resilience, a testament to all she had achieved. But the moment that solidified her transformation landed quietly within the sea of voices. A familiar presence slipped through the crowd. Marco. Their eyes locked, and a warm, reassuring smile spread across his face. In witnessing Sarah's metamorphosis, he was no longer the catalyst she had once clung to for support. Instead, he had become a cherished connection, a reminder that faith in vulnerability mattered. As the night wore on, the applause erupted. Sarah stood before her painting that echoed the essence of her father's complexities and her newfound strength. "I'm Sarah," she declared with a voice unshaken by fear. "I am reclaiming my truth, stepping into my power not merely as my father's daughter, but as an individual shaped by love, loss, and the pursuit of light." In that distinct moment, clarity washed over her. There was no longer a chasm between who she was and who she could become. Grateful tears welled as applause enveloped her, resonating with the sheer magnitude of what she had accomplished. Recognition, acceptance, and a profound sense of accomplishment filled the air. It wasn't only a personal victory, but a reminder of the journey behind her. As Marco approached, he spoke with sincerity. "You did it, Sarah. You've shifted the narrative." With unwavering confidence, she replied, "And I'm just getting started." Stepping outside into the cool night air, Sarah breathed deeply, the sense of the city flickering with promise. As she embraced the moment, the stars flickered against an expansive canvas of darkness, a celestial reminder that brightness exists even in the depths of shadow. Her growth, hard-earned and deeply fulfilling, painted a vivid landscape that extended beyond her father's legacy. This was just the beginning. The exploration into her identity beckoned further adventures, and she felt invigorated by the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. The world was no longer burdened by her past, it blossomed with hope in her heart. Now, this is the moment for each of you. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to subscribe now. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this empowering ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see Sarah's incredible journey of transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share. Together, we can keep these life-changing stories alive for those who need a spark of hope.